Pushing and pulling rail cars at the train yard is the job of a large motorized vehicle, appropriately called a railcar mover. It switches the cars from one track to another, shuttles them in and out of the cargo loading area, and positions them in line behind the locomotive. A railcar mover has to drive both on and off the train track, so it has two types of wheels: 4 steel rail wheels for guiding it on the track, and 4 wheels with rubber tires for driving on the ground. When building a railcar mover, they start with the frame. A computer-guided plasma cutter cuts out all the frame parts from a 4-inch thick steel plate. Once all the frame parts are ready, workers begin welding them together. They position the deck plate, the mover's floor, upside down, and weld on the frame rails. These will hold the axles for the rubber wheels. Then, to those frame rails, they weld the rail arm mounts. These will hold the rail arms which hold the rail wheels. After welding several additional components to the frame, workers bolt the axles for the rubber wheels to the frame rails. Then the rail arms to the rail mounts. Now, the frame goes to the paint shop for a coat of primer, followed by a coat of automotive paint. Workers also roll on a textured floor coating to create a non-slip surface for the driver to safely walk to and from the cab. When the paint dries, the frame returns to the assembly line, where workers begin mounting the 4.5-foot wide rail wheels onto the rail arms. After mounting each wheel on the spindle, they install a bearing, then a large nut. They must tighten the nut to the correct torque, yet not over-tighten it or the wheel won't turn freely. Once they've got just the correct torque, they secure the nut with the retaining lock nut. They finish off this installation with the rail wheel equivalent of a hubcap. This steel cover holds in the grease that lubricates the wheel and bearing while keeping out dust and dirt. Next, they mount the 4 rubber wheels, securing each one with a dozen bolts. These steel wheels with rubber tires are about 6.5 feet in diameter. Workers mount several other components, including a pair of air tanks with gauges for the railcar's pneumatic brake system. These are the brakes the driver uses when the mover is coupled to rail cars. When it's not, the mover has its own separate hydraulic brake system, the components of which workers also install at this stage. They attach a hydraulic cylinder to the steer axle. This controls the steering of the rubber wheels when the mover is off the train track. The rail wheels, of course, don't require any steering, as they simply follow the track. Now, workers install the 300 horsepower diesel engine. It's already bolted to the transmission. Then they hook up the electrical wiring, which connects the engine and transmission to the computer controlling them. They lower the hood over the engine and transmission. The hood has 3 components already installed: the engine air intake, air cleaner, and muffler. Finally, they install the cab. It has a steering wheel for driving off-rail and a control console that rotates 180 degrees to let the driver operate at whichever side of the cab provides the best view of all the rail cars the mover is pulling or pushing. The finished railcar mover doesn't leave the factory before a burn-in period in the test pit. The test is so intense, the rubber tires have to be cooled with water. Pulling as many as 40 rail cars at a time is no job for a lightweight. That's why a railcar mover weighs in at up to 45 tons.